Here's the truth we all know. This country is not going to find internal peace or unity until the right wing learns to have some accountability for their words. The Utah governor should be resigning or abjectly apologizing today. That man did something incompetent, grotesque, disgusting, a complete violation of the public trust, and no one even notices. He stood at a press conference 2 days ago, right after Charlie Kirk was killed, and talked about the motive before they had a suspect. That is so egregious. He talked about the great American experiment and that this was a political assassination, inferring, assuming, implying that it was a leftist, liberal Democrat trying to affect political narrative. So too the entire right-wing echo chamber, so too all the right-wing leaders all said that. They're all wrong, completely wrong. But will you hear that from any of them? Will any of them apologize for inciting and inflaming the public with a false narrative? No, you will not. Nor will you hear them say this: you were right, liberals, leftists, Democrats, it's the guns. By which I mean gun culture. I am not talking about hunting. I'm not talking about teaching your children about safe use of guns in the woods. I am talking about gun culture where adolescent boys are bathed in assault rifles and photographed with them and learn to use guns as a mode of expression and self-empowerment. I am talking about political leaders who wear assault rifles on their lapels as a symbol. That's the problem. 1,500 mass shootings in the last 25 years. That's the problem. This is another case of the same problem. But until Republicans admit that they're wrong when they talk without facts, and then admit who is right about the facts, we got ourselves a problem.
In September 2025, conservative activist Charlie Kirk was fatally shot while speaking at Utah Valley University. The incident shocked the nation and prompted a fierce debate over political violence, radicalizations, and the role of ideology. Today, we examine what is known and what is still uncertain. Watch and pay attention, and I will share my thought later.
You mean to tell me a 22-year-old Mormon just tried to trigger a civil war with an ooh-woo? With an ooh-woo?
I understand it now. I get it. Y'all can't stand the mirror that's been put in front of your face. All of the shit that y'all have been serving for the last few decades now against minority communities. Y'all can't stand having to look at it when it affects you. See, that's the thing. I finally get it. It took me a lot of time because I'm thinking, why are people reacting so violently to this? And it reminds me of the very first event that I had when I was escaping the alt-right pipeline and changing my mindset of that. Was that anger and violence. Because see, here's the thing. And here's the thing you really don't understand because you refuse to put yourself in other people's shoes and actually be empathetic to other people's situations. How do y'all think the black community has felt for the last 5 years since George Floyd has died? All the memes y'all shared about that. How do you think they felt about the memes about Breonna Taylor, you know, the woman who was gunned down in her sleep during a no-knock raid? How do you think the Latino community has felt for the last 8 months with y'all cheering Trump for his deportation efforts and buying merch for Alligator Alcatraz and egging it on that human suffering is a great thing for this country? How do you think the gay community felt with all the jokes y'all made about the Pulse nightclub shooting a few years back in Orlando that killed 50 plus people in a predominantly gay club? You are truly experiencing for the first time how it tastes. The hatred y'all have been spilling out of your guts for years finally comes back at you. And that's the thing you don't like. But you know what? The funny thing about all of it is, where's the black community calling for war with how you have treated them? Where's the Latino community going up in arms and calling for war? And no, fighting off ICE and protesting, that is not war. That is civil disobedience, and that is our First Amendment right. But calling for the bloodshed of innocent civilians because they make jokes about a dead man who spent his entire political career actively making these communities worse with his rhetoric and their situations worse? Where's their calls for war? See, you're just now kind of coming out of the illusion that your hatred and bigotry that you claim is free speech is free of consequences from the actions of what you just said.
That's what they said. I watched the press conference about the Charlie Kirk school shooting and how they caught a suspect. Governor of Utah, FBI director, standing up there talking about how they caught a 22-year-old man named Tyler Robinson, how his dad is a MAGA Mormon minister cop. They talked about how they found shell casings from a 30-06 with phrases written on them because every shooter got to write a phrase on a shell casing now because everybody got to copy everybody. And they get up there and they're talking about it and they start reading what was on the shell casings. And I was like, yo, what? That was an ooh-woo. That was an that's what they said. The governor of Utah is not online enough to read it that way. And there's no way he would read it that way. This is how he read the first shell casing, which is, I believe, the shell casing that took out Charlie Kirk. Because it was the only spent shell casing and only took one shot to take out Charlie. Okay? This is how he read it. Notice his bulges, capital OWO, what's this question mark, was written on the spent shell casing. But here's the thing, if you're deep enough online, you know that that's not how you read that. How you're supposed to read that is, notice his bulges. Ew, what's this? That's how that's supposed to be read. We live in a deeply, deeply flawed and unserious world where people are constantly trying to cause and create chaos to accelerate their worldview into some sort of fantasy land that won't actually happen, even if they get their wish. And now we're all trapped here together, staring around, trying to figure out which Discord kitten wronged a shooter that then scarred the lives of, I want to say, about 3,000 people who were staring at a man in a tent. That's where we are now.
Because you only ever say it online. Because when you do say it to someone's face, you almost always outnumber them 5-1. You almost always catch people in situations where they're at a disadvantage, so when you say these things, you're protected. But now with Charlie, in his situation, you're having to come to reality for the first time of the vile and awful things that you believe in, and you don't like it. You're having to eat that. You're having to stare it in the face, and what's your first response? To be violent and angry towards innocent people. Because you scream that everyone's entitled to their opinion. You love dark humor, but the second you see people making jokes about Charlie Kirk being gone, oh, that's too far? Oh, that's too far. The Halloween costumes of George Floyd being strangled to death. Oh, let's not even glaze over the fact that I'm seeing a bunch of posts going, congratulations, George Floyd, for being 5 years sober, because he's dead. But now you want us to care. You're now noticing just how little actual emotion, like how little actual empathy and sympathy exist amongst your own ranks. Because the funniest thing about this entire situation is the fact that it was one of your own that killed him. It was a 22-year-old white kid from Utah who came from a conservative GOP family that loved Trump. And he was a registered Republican. So if you really, really, really think you want war or bloodshed with innocent people, how about you look in a mirror and why don't you sit there for a few days and actually digest and break down your beliefs? Because I'm sure it's screaming at you from the inside. I remember feeling that a lot whenever I was younger in the alt-right, was there's this interior voice that's screaming that the things you are saying and doing are wrong, but you don't care because it's getting you brownie points with the people around you because you've surrounded yourself with hateful people. How about you actually think for a few days on your politics and your beliefs? Because at the moment, y'all are disgusting. Y'all call us disgusting for celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. We think you're disgusting because really Charlie Kirk is no different than any child that has been shot in a school for the last fucking 2 decades. The things we have been trying to prevent, the things we've been trying to stop, the pain that these incidents cause families. Yeah, how about you think about which side you've been fighting on that for a while?
Fucking well. What do you know? It looks like they caught the Charlie Kirk shooter suspect. And who could have guessed that he would be a Republican-raised Mormon incel who went as Donald Trump for Halloween and also carved on the bullets or bullet casings, I'm not sure exactly which, carved on them the message, if you're seeing this, you're gay. LMAO. this is the mastermind we're working with here. And not to fan the flames of conspiracy theories, but I know you're all seeing them, and I know you know which ones I'm talking about. But the fact that there was a very swift, coordinated response from Republican politicians, policymakers, influencers, normies, everyone really, to get out there first and say that this was a Democrat. What are they going to say now? And I mean, obviously this is not our first rodeo. We know that they're not going to concede or admit that they were wrong. They're just going to double down or pivot completely away from it and hope that everyone forgets. And also, I do think it's very important to say that when I say they caught him, I do not mean the FBI. I do not mean Kash Patel, because this kid's dad turned him in after he confessed, presumably guilty conscience or something. And as a matter of fact, Kash Patel actually arrested the wrong person, announced that he arrested that person incorrectly, and had to release him. And after all the effort, all the manpower, all the resources they put into this, they couldn't even find him. His dad turned him in. And of course, we may likely never know the answer to this question, but it really makes you think. Were they ever really intending on finding him? Or was Republicans' vested interest in this no longer there anymore? Was the task at hand already complete? Makes you think, makes you think. Comment below. What do you think? Theoretically, of course. And while I have you, be sure, like, repost, share with a friend, because they got him, guys, and it was exactly who we thought it was. And be sure to follow me for more updates like this, because there's gonna be more.
So I don't know if any of you watched the press conference today. I want to talk about what the governor of Utah said, which was that he really hoped that it wasn't someone from his state. He went on to say that he hoped it was someone from another state. He hoped it was someone from another country. Now, then he goes on to say that the division in the politics needs to stop. He in no way gave a speech today to me that would say, oh, he wants it to stop. I thought my governor was bad. Ugh. Tate Reeves, geez. I thought he was radicalized. When you think about the stuff that he was saying, the governor, his mind shows to me that he is more focused on blaming actual problems here in America on homegrown soil. They are so much more focused on finding other reasons to blame stuff on, just like a narcissist, right? When they know that there is really a problem, they are so much more focused on finding other reasons to excuse the problem. It's a homegrown terroristic act, just like all of the other school shootings. And that's the issue that needs to be fixed. It's not looking for people outside of your state or out of the country. You know, this is here. This is at home. This is something that needs to be addressed again. And one last thing I want to talk about. I looked at a lot of the comments that were going on during that live, and oh my God, so many threats on left-leaners.
On September 10, Charlie Kirk, co-founder of Turning Point USA, was speaking outdoors at Utah Valley University as part of his America Comeback Tour. During the event, a shot rang out. He was hit in the neck by a rifle from a rooftop some distance away. He died from his injuries. The suspect was later identified as Tyler James Robinson, 22 years old. Utah Governor Spencer Cox has stated that the motive is not yet certain. The suspect has not cooperated with the authorities. However, Governor Cox said preliminary interviews with family and acquaintance indicate that Robinson had a leftist ideology, differing sharply from his conservative upbringing. Cox has also described Robinson as radicalized online. Some physical evidence, bullet casing recovered at the scene, had engravings. One said, "A fascist catch plus other meme giving references." We do not yet have a definitive, fully documented motive. It is unclear whether the ideology was the driving cause or one of many contributing factors. It is not clear what leftist ideology means in the context, what specific beliefs or group, or how deeply held. Cox has not provided extensive detail. The role of Robinson's personal relationships, e.g., his roommate, partner, who is transitioning, is being investigated, but there is no confirmed link yet to motive. The broader question: how much radicalization via social media or online subcultures is playing a gradual role in acts of political violence? There are concerns, theories, but not yet conclusive proof in this particular case. Governor Kirk has explicitly blamed what he describes as leftist ideology and online radicalization. He also emphasized that if Robinson had radicalized MAGA or right-wing views, he would say that too, insisting this is not about political biases, but about the nature of radicalization. Meanwhile, other leaders from both parties have called for reduced political violence and a more civil discourse. But many analysts caution that rhetoric from both sides contributes to polarization. This case has become a flashpoint for larger debates in the US. How political polarization is eroding safety, how social media impacts beliefs and behavior, the danger of ideological extremists, the danger of ideological extremism, whether left or right. There is concern over the freedom of expression, over people scapegoating ideologies or communities before facts are fully established. Misinformation can spread fast in these emotionally charged moments. Legal implication: charges against the suspect are being filed. What emerges in those documents will matter for establishing motive. Also, there may be repercussions for social media regulation, public policy, and how universities or event organizers manage security. Because political violence impacts everyone, we need more factual clarity, more transparency from authorities, and less rushing to judgments. Dialogue across divides, critical thinking about what we see online, pushing platforms to be accountable for how they promote content. These are some of the ways to address radicalization. Ultimately, it is important to defend free speech, accountability, and justice, but also to demand responsibility from leaders and citizens alike. This is not just a murder case, it is a reflection of the tense political climate in America right now. As we wait for more answers, perhaps the greatest question is whether we will use what we learn to change the way we speak, the way we engage, and the way we live together. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.